I used to believe my marriage was unshakable. If anyone had asked me just a year ago, I would have said Jason and I were the couple people envied, the ones who seemed to have it all together. We had the house, the careers, the laughter at dinner parties. He knew how to make me laugh even when I was angry, and I thought that was love, that was safety. So when our 10th anniversary was approaching, I wanted to do something special. Something that reminded us of the beginning, of the days when it was just us against the world. I booked a trip, an entire week away in the mountains. No distractions, no work emails, no excuses. Just him and me, finding each other again. I told myself it would be a fresh start. Because truthfully, something had been off between us. His late nights, the quick silences when I walked into the room, the way his phone never left his hand. I brushed it off. I told myself I was imagining things. I wanted to believe that marriage wasn't perfect, but ours was strong enough to survive the rough patches. The night before the trip, I was packing our bags in the bedroom. Jason was in the shower, and his phone buzzed on the dresser. Normally, I would have ignored it. I trusted him, or at least I thought I did. But something in me, a whisper I had been trying to silence for months, told me to look. I wish I hadn't. The screen lit up with a message that made my stomach twist. I can't wait to see you again. Last night was unforgettable. Don't let her find out. Her. That was me. My hands shook as I scrolled, reading thread after thread of messages that confirmed what my gut had been screaming. Hotels. Excuses. Lies wrapped in charm. While I was planning a romantic anniversary getaway, my husband was planning nights with someone else. I sat on the edge of the bed, his phone clutched in my hands, my entire world collapsing in silence. My chest hurt so badly I thought I might pass out. And yet, when Jason walked out of the bathroom minutes later, towel around his waist, humming like nothing was wrong, I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone at him. I didn't demand answers. Instead, I looked at him, really looked at him, and something inside me broke. The man I thought was my forever was a stranger. A liar. A coward. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. I never thought I'd be the woman who takes revenge this way. But that night, as I stared at the man who betrayed me, I made a decision that would change everything. Jason wasn't just my husband, he was the man everyone described as charming. The kind of man who could walk into a room and make everyone feel like they mattered. At work, his colleagues admired him. At family gatherings, my relatives adored him. To the outside world, he was successful, confident, reliable, the dream partner. And for a long time, I believed it too. But in the months leading up to our anniversary, I began noticing little cracks. At first, they seemed harmless. A few late nights here and there, explained away with big projects and last-minute deadlines. A phone that was once casually left on the counter was now always flipped upside down, as if the screen held secrets I wasn't supposed to see. When I asked, he'd smile, kiss my forehead, and tell me not to be silly. "You're just being paranoid," he'd say, in that calm, patronizing way that always made me feel guilty for even asking. And for a while I let myself believe him. I convinced myself that I was overthinking, that I was becoming one of those wives who saw shadows where there were none. After all, hadn't he given me 10 years of marriage? Didn't he deserve my trust? Still, the unease lingered, like a splinter under my skin. The only person who seemed to notice my growing restlessness was Mark, Jason's best friend since college. Mark was the opposite of Jason in many ways. Where Jason was bold and commanding, Mark was quiet and steady. He wasn't flashy, but he was loyal, always the one to help us move furniture, fix a leaky faucet, or stay behind after dinners to help clean up. I used to joke that if Jason was the storm, Mark was the anchor. Whenever Jason and I bickered, Mark was usually the one to step in and smooth things over. He'd pat Jason on the back, tell me not to take things too seriously, and somehow diffuse the tension. At the time, I thought he was just being a good friend. But looking back, I realized Mark saw more than he ever let on. The distance between Jason and me grew slowly, almost invisibly, until I woke up one day and felt like I was sleeping beside a stranger. I'd reach for his hand, and he'd pull away, saying he was tired. I'd try to start conversations, but his answers were clipped, distracted. He was always somewhere else, his body present, but his mind unreachable. And yet, every time I confronted him, he turned it back on me. Why are you acting so insecure? Do you want to ruin this marriage over nothing? His words made me question my own sanity. Was I really losing my grip? Was I imagining things? But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong, until that night before our anniversary trip. The night before the trip, I was folding clothes into the suitcase, trying to convince myself this getaway would heal us. That if I just pushed through, if I just gave us space away from everything, we could find our way back. But then, as I reached for Jason's jacket, something slipped out of the inside pocket. A hotel receipt. 2 nights at a place we had never stayed before, dated just a week earlier. My breath caught in my throat. My hand started to tremble as I unfolded it again and again, hoping I had read it wrong. But no. It was there in black ink, 2 guests, 1 room. Panic surged through me. I reached for his phone, sitting on the dresser. My heart pounded as I unlocked it, praying I'd find nothing, praying I was just paranoid like he said. But the truth glared back at me in cruel, mocking words. Messages. Dozens of them. I can't stop thinking about last night. I wish I could wake up beside you instead. Don't worry, she doesn't suspect a thing. Her. Me. My knees buckled, and I sank onto the bed, the phone slipping through my shaking fingers. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was caving in, every beat of my heart hammering against the betrayal I never wanted to see. It was like drowning in plain air, gasping but never filling my lungs. And then, as if the universe wanted to mock me further, Jason walked in. His hair was damp from the shower, his shirt clinging to his chest. He leaned down, pressed a kiss against my forehead, and smiled like nothing in the world was wrong. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the phone in his face and demand to know how long he'd been lying, how many nights he had chosen her over me. But I didn't. Instead, I stared at him, frozen, while my whole body burned with rage and heartbreak. When he finally drifted into the living room, humming as he scrolled through his phone, I grabbed mine and dialed the only person I could think of. Mark, I whispered when he picked up. My voice cracked. Can you meet me? Please. Minutes later, I was sitting in Mark's car outside our house, tears streaking down my face, my hands clutching that receipt like it was a death certificate. I told him everything, the texts, the lies, the hotel. The words poured out of me, jagged and raw, like shards of glass cutting my throat. Mark sat there in silence, his jaw tight, his eyes dark with something I couldn't name. And then, through my sobs, something inside me snapped. The pain, the humiliation, the betrayal, it twisted into something reckless. If Jason can betray me, I choked out, then maybe I should betray him too. The words hung in the air, heavy, dangerous, and real. The next morning, I didn't wake up beside Jason. I didn't even tell him I was leaving. Instead, I packed the bags I had prepared for our romantic trip, walked past him while he snored on the couch, and slid quietly into Mark's car. He looked at me like he wasn't sure if I was serious, like he was waiting for me to change my mind. But when I buckled my seatbelt and whispered, "Let's go," he started the engine without a word. The drive was heavy with silence at first. I could feel his hesitation, the weight of what we were about to do pressing down on both of us. This wasn't just a weekend getaway. It was rebellion. It was betrayal. It was revenge. When we arrived at the cabin, everything felt surreal. The mountains stretched endlessly around us, the air was crisp, the world was quiet, but inside me, there was a storm raging. Part of me wanted to collapse in grief, to sob until there was nothing left. Another part of me wanted to burn, to hurt Jason the way he had hurt me. Mark carried the bags inside, glancing at me like he was searching for permission to exist in this moment with me. I should have told him to leave. I should have said this was a mistake. But instead, I let the door close behind us and exhaled for the first time in months. It was awkward at first. We kept our distance, our conversations clipped, careful. But as the hours passed, something shifted. The silence didn't feel heavy anymore, it felt freeing. For the first time, I wasn't the woman being lied to, dismissed, or made to feel paranoid. I was a woman making her own choice, even if it was reckless. The guilt sat in the back of my mind, whispering that I was no better than Jason. But layered over that guilt was something else: power. Control. For once, I wasn't the one being broken. I was the one holding the pieces, deciding where to place them. My phone buzzed endlessly. Jason's name lit up the screen again and again, calls, texts, voicemails dripping with anger and confusion. "Where are you? How could you do this? We're supposed to leave together." For the first time in my marriage, I didn't answer. I let it ring. I let him wonder. I let him feel a fraction of the panic he had forced on me. And with every call I ignored, I felt the weight lifting from my chest. On the second night of the trip, after a long day of pretending we were just two friends sharing space, Mark poured us each a glass of wine and sat across from me. The fire crackled between us, casting shadows on his face, and for the first time since we arrived, I noticed how tired he looked, like he was carrying something heavy. He kept fidgeting with the rim of his glass, eyes fixed on the flames instead of me. Finally, he said, almost in a whisper, "You know, I'm not surprised." I blinked. Not surprised by what? That Jason was cheating. His voice was flat, but his hands trembled. My heart lurched. "You knew?" Mark nodded, guilt flickering in his eyes. "I've known for months. I caught him texting one night when we were out, and it didn't take a genius to figure it out. I confronted him. Told him to stop before he lost everything. But he just laughed." The words hit me harder than the discovery itself. Jason hadn't just betrayed me, he had mocked the sanctity of our marriage so openly that even his best friend couldn't get through to him. "What did he say?" I asked, my voice breaking. Mark looked at me then, and there was so much sorrow in his eyes it nearly broke me. "He said you'd never leave. That you were too loyal, too blind. He called you safe." Safe. Like I was a security blanket, not a wife. Like I was something to fall back on while he chased excitement elsewhere. The insult seared into me, deeper than any text I had read. Tears burned my eyes, but before I could crumble, Mark's hand reached across the table, covering mine. His touch was warm, steady. "I wanted to tell you," he said softly, "but I didn't want to be the one to destroy you. I thought if I stayed quiet, maybe he'd stop, maybe you'd never have to know." I stared at him, searching for anger, betrayal, but what I found was something else. A truth I hadn't let myself see. Mark swallowed hard, his voice dropping even lower. "The truth is, I've been in love with you for years. I just never said anything, because he was my best friend. And you deserve to be happy. Even if it wasn't with me." The confession knocked the air out of me. For so long, I thought I was alone in my loneliness. But here was someone who had seen me, really seen me, when the man I married never did. What I thought was a reckless act of revenge suddenly felt like something else, like the universe had been forcing the truth to the surface. Jason's betrayal wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the unveiling of a love that had been quietly waiting for me all along. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel broken. I felt chosen. Back in the present day, Jason is nothing more than a shadow in my past. The man who once filled every corner of my life is now just a cautionary tale whispered among our old friends. When the truth came out, when people learned not only that he had been cheating, but that I had walked away with his best friend, he was humiliated. The charm he wore like a second skin couldn't protect him anymore. I heard through mutual friends that he tried to spin the story, paint himself as the victim. But lies crumble quickly when everyone has already seen the evidence. And no matter how loud he shouted, people couldn't forget the fact that he had mocked me, used me, and thought I'd never leave. His arrogance was his undoing. And me? I thought the revenge would be the sweetest part, watching him lose the one thing he thought he could take for granted. But over time, I realized it wasn't the revenge that healed me. It was Mark. The man who had quietly stood in the background for years, waiting, watching, respecting boundaries even when it hurt him. The man who chose honesty when Jason chose deceit. What started as rebellion, an impulsive act of anger, slowly revealed itself to be something more. It wasn't just about punishing Jason, it was about finally seeing who had truly cared for me all along. I won't lie, the guilt still lingers sometimes. I wonder if I stooped too low by betraying betrayal with betrayal. But then I remember the nights I spent crying alone while Jason was out with someone else. I remember the way he gaslit me, made me question my sanity, made me believe love was supposed to feel like walking on eggshells. And I realize, I don't owe regret to a man who never honored me. Maybe revenge brought me to this point, but love is what saved me from staying broken. That's the truth I carry now. Jason thought I'd always be safe. But safety isn't the same as love. Love isn't in the excuses, the lies, the secrecy. Love is in the man who stood by me when I shattered, who looked me in the eye and said, "You deserve better." And maybe I finally believe him. So now I'll ask you, the ones listening to my story, would you have forgiven? Would you have stayed with someone who shattered every vow, every promise?